Welcome to This Week in Combat Sports, where we'll be looking ahead to this weekend's big fights, as well as taking a closer look at some of the bigger news of the day. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell. Rick, this weekend in Las Vegas, one of the biggest bouts in boxing in recent memory, or at least this year. Betting line would suggest Canelo Alvarez should dominate Daniel Jacobs, but what can you tell us about that fight and the surrounding card?
You know, I'm pretty pumped for this fight between Alvarez and Jacobs. Two champions going at it, two really good boxers going at it. Canelo's a beast. Plain and simple, he's just a beast. He will maul you in there. He's like a bear when he gets in there. He's a Mexican bear when he gets in there. If I knew how to say bear in Spanish, I would say it right now. But I don't. And I digress. Jacobs, he's more athletic. He's got good range. He might even have the reach advantage here. He's got better footwork. He will try and keep the fight at a distance. He doesn't want to get in there, as they call the proverbial phone booth. Is want to get close to Canelo, and we all know what Canelo's going to do. He's going to try and get in there and impose his will, keep the fight close, and beat up Jacobs. Jacobs, if he can keep it at a distance, if he can use his athleticism to his advantage, he does have a shot here. Like, you can't discount him. I think the odds makers put these odds a little too high in disparity here. I think Jacobs has a better chance than some of these online betting sites or Vegas bookmakers think. The rest of the card's pretty hit or miss. You got some young prospects on there taking on some veterans, but the odds are so far out of whack that you don't even want to touch these fights, like with Ortiz and Young on the undercard and stuff. I do like the Ryder fight on this card. He's taken on an undefeated Australian fighter. It's a last-minute bout put together because it was supposed to be Lemieux versus Ryder for the vacant interim title, WBA interim title. But Lemieux pulled out due to health reasons. So they put this fight together. It has a good chance to be actually the best fight on the show, on the entire card. So there's some hit or miss fights for this card. Obviously, the main event is where all the attention is going to be at. It's the best fight of the weekend in terms of champion versus champion. And I'm pretty pumped for it. I know a lot of people are pumped for this fight. There's a lot of buzz going around it.
The UFC's on ESPN Plus this weekend, hailing from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. The headline bout features Cowboy Don Cerrone and Iaquinta. At last check, Iaquinta is slightly favored on the money line. Two questions in one for you. Who do you see winning the main event, and which fight on that card provides the best bang for betting buck?
Ooh, okay. Wow. Well, let's start with the first question, the main event. I'm a huge Cowboy fan, so there might be a slight bias there. So, you know, anybody watching this video, anybody checking out my article, I made it perfectly clear. I'm a Cowboy fan. With that said, I do think Cowboy matches up really well with Raging Al, and here's why. Cowboy can stand up and bang with Raging Al, or he can take it to the mat, where I believe he has the advantage. Iaquinta has 3 submission losses out of his 4 career losses. Cerrone has like 17 submission victories in his career out of 35 wins. He can do it standing. He can do it on the ground. I think what's going to end up happening is eventually Cerrone will work to get it to the ground, especially if Raging Al's getting the better of him standing up. I think Cowboy's going to win this fight. And honestly, I believe the winner of this fight is going to have a future title shot down the road once Khabib gets back and he takes on Poirier and we clear that up a little bit. But Cerrone, the Cowboy, he's earned the respect of his peers, of the critics, and of all the fans. You can't help but root for a guy like that. And the second question, you know, there are a lot of fights on this card, at least 3 or 4 that offer good bang for your buck. So if we just stuck with the main card, in the co-main event, you have Brunson versus Elias Theodorou, and Elias is a big favorite. Yet Brunson has the knockout power to end it in one punch. And I'm actually taking Brunson to win, and I think he's going to take it. I think he's going to win this fight. And that's just one example. There's more on this card.
Well, last question for you. I'm going to leave this one open to you. In addition to the boxing card on DAZN and UFC on ESPN Plus, There are also other combat sports options this weekend, including Bellator. So which card of all that's going on this weekend are you the most excited about from a betting perspective, from a watching perspective?
Ooh, well, first of all, you can just throw the Bellator card out. Like, this card is a weak card. Last weekend's card was the one I was pretty fired up for, and I talked about it. I think the UFC card is actually a really good one for a fight night event. The main event itself is practically a pay-per-view headliner with Cerrone and Raging Al. And I call him Raging Al because it's such a great nickname. With that said, there are a lot of close fights on there. There are a lot of Canadian prospects on there. And the odds are pretty close. And then you got several fights that have good opportunity for betting upsets. You got some veterans that are returning, like Cub Swanson. He lost 3 straight fights. He's been out for at least 8 months, took some time off, got his personal life right. And he's going up against a fighter that is a clear betting favorite. However, he's been around for a long time. I'm intrigued to see how he looks. I'm intrigued to see the Canadian Superman come in there, and he's 8-0, and he's an underdog as well. And you got another knockout artist who's making his UFC debut, and Marc-Andre Barreau, if I'm saying that right. And he's an underdog in his fight as well. And I believe he has a good chance at winning. This is what I mean. Like, this card has several fights from the opening bouts until the main event fight where you don't only have some entertainment, but you got a lot of good betting value. And I've listed them all in my article, my breakdown of this event. But that's where I'm going with this. The UFC Fight Night from Ottawa is going to be a solid card. They did a really good job putting prospects together, bringing some veterans back, the matchmaking here was really good. I'm pretty excited for it. Outside of Jacobs versus Alvarez, I'm pretty excited for this UFC Fight Night card.
All right, Rick Rockwell, thank you very much. Be sure to check out Rick's articles on boxing, MMA, and more online now at gamblingsites.org. He's got all of these cards and more covered and broken down for you bit by bit right there. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel. I'm Drew Goldfarb, and he's Rick Rockwell. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.